Thank you so much, Mike. I'm just trying to share my screen again now. So can you see my screen?
Yes, it's there, Gehan.
All right, good. Good. Okay, thank you so much, Mike, for the introduction, and thanks everyone for joining our room today and the session. And really delighted to join you all today and have you and be part of this really interesting project. And really looking forward how our processes and methodologies and approaches will develop all along the line. And looking forward to hearing some interesting presentations today. So my name is Gehan Selim, and I'm an associate professor in architecture at University of Leeds. And just as Mike said, I'm one of the co-investigators for the Engage Network in the UK. My talk today is titled Engaging Citizens with Cultural Heritage Reflections and Insights in Community Heritage Protection in the Middle East. My talk will have two sections or two parts. So first, I'll present an overview on heritage and cultural property destruction, which is constantly destroyed by wars, conflict, and natural causes. I will also touch base on how the concept of heritage interpretation offers interesting approaches and methods of engagement with citizens. I will then move to display two of my recent projects that I have led in 2017 and 2019, which both look at developing new approaches and methods of engagement with particular focus on youth people in several regions and several contexts that have been affected by war, that have been affected by conflict in many ways. And to learn more how they became more receptive and engaging with their lost histories. And as Mike just mentioned in his introduction, and he's totally right, that we have different ways and relations to connect with the past. And in reality, we all deal with heritage in different ways, and we do understand it as a concept that incorporates far more just than the physical features of things, which could be identified, deemed significant, managed and controlled as the historic environment in a professional sense. So in fact, we do promote the value of heritage as a cohesive resource from which future generations discover where they come from and how can they navigate the future. And this is the underlying idea behind various awarenesses and raising programs that aim to secure a wide degree of social protection for heritage by their citizens and local people. However, these ideas of moral duty are linked to the notion that the legacy of heritage has a certain value, which is an idea that today is being challenged on numerous fronts and numerous trends. So indeed, cultural heritage is central to shaping our identities, and we all agree about that. But it's about the way that how it is interpreted in essential ways for our common future. So the question is, how can cultural heritage help young people in the Middle East to reflect upon their strengths and weaknesses, upon their values, and upon their cultural treasures and upon their cultural forces? And answering and touch basing on some of answering of these questions is the scope of this presentation in the coming 20 minutes, and hopefully I'll be trying to stick to my time. So and I'm not going to go through this a lot, but we have all witnessed the long war during the last quarter of the 20th century, during which conflict resulted in physical destruction that is yet to be resolved. And as a result, memory and heritage together became a vulnerable target without protection, with millions of citizens living under the threat of frequent conflict. This type of instability actually produced intolerance and controversial discourses about the youth people and their cultural identities. So some of the examples we are aware of, and we know, like in 2013, we have all seen aired images of the destroyed section of the Umayyad Mosque in Aleppo. And in 2015, Nepal was faced by a 7.8 earthquake, demolishing the heritage of the city, which is one of the main touristic destinations. And it all came to a full rubble. In Armenia, for example, corruption and misplaced nationalism has led to an almost complete eradication of the old city, which dates back to the 18th and the 19th century. Not to go far, and most of my research is there, in Cairo, historic buildings are constantly under the radar of destruction. Some images like this that has been captured by the Egyptian photographer Michael Hanna describes this loss as Cairo is a city in war. And it's almost on a weekly basis that Cairo is losing many of its well-known and popular heritage building sites. So in general, there is often contested narratives about history and heritage, beliefs and faiths, culture and identity. But because these narratives are strongly held, it is difficult to reach an agreement between different groups about the accepted historical narrative as a common story. And in such cases, it is crucial to equip young people with tools and enable them to reflect on multiple histories rather than one single story, and to think about their personal and community connections to the past, rather than trying to impose an agreed historical narrative on them, specifically if they were not part of this narrative and building it in a constructive way. So in this discussion here, I use the term heritage interpretation, which is crucial in driving ideas and notions of engagement, both as a theoretical concept and also in supporting the development of new tools, new meanings, new approaches to the success of engaging local citizens. So I argue that whether we do or do not, heritage is a question of interpretation, of the way that we think the actual experience to our own personal history in order to give it a deeper meaning for ourselves. I also ask the question of how people can be encouraged and be enabled to make this link in what heritage interpretation is all about. So interrogating heritage interpretation in one way or another supports connecting people with the legacy of their past, and it turns the experience into sources of inspiration and creativity. And to do so, it also relates people and it provokes their curiosity, and it includes narratives that might be relevant to them, and it encourages their reflection as well. Heritage interpretation in one way or another also supports young people to take ownership if they acknowledge the rise of these values as part of their own heritage, and it's always an ongoing system that is happening in the background. And by experiencing heritage firsthand, this offers the best setting for thinking about true engagement. I also conceptualize interpretation as a way of building citizenship, which is really important into that discussion. And it then becomes a tool to develop a peaceful society for everyone, and the striving for sustainable development and enthusiasm for lifelong learning. All of this is part of the legacies that emerged over centuries from conflict and from achievements of human understanding, and as it has finally been manifested in recent decades. So what tools and what methods, approaches could we implement to engage young citizens in heritage? So here I will touch base and reflect on two projects, as I mentioned at the start, that have been funded by the Arts and Humanities Research Council in 2017 and 2020. Both projects resonate with a new and urgently needed mode of democratization of memory and digital culture that further foregrounds the importance of cross-boundary and interdisciplinary approaches towards addressing innovative rebuilding programs in the Middle East, with the new arena of significant loss of historic buildings all across the globe. And in both projects, as a team, we decided to engage young people in historical inquiry as a successful approach to heritage awareness, and to support them to inquire about their heritage using similar approaches to those used by professionals. And this also provided and provoked to be also a creative way to engage learners with the richness of their heritage. So the first project I will look at is the Belle Époque Cairo Museum's itineraries, which I would refer to as BICAMI. The BICAMI project covers the 19th century Egypt's Belle Époque, which was a period of incredible indulgence during the Khedive Ismail Cairo, which became the mirror image of Paris, both architecturally and socially. Actually, the term Belle Époque phrase stands for the beautiful era, which was a period of imported Western history and was strongly linked to the Western advancements as well. It was also a period characterized by optimism, regional peace, economic prosperity, and technological and scientific and cultural innovations. The BICAMI project was developed as an innovative way to reconnect fragments of history of that era represented in its neglected museums. And as you can see on the map on your right hand, we selected 12 museums in this project, which represents 3 types of Egyptian heritage. The museums either represent the tangible architectural heritage as a historical significant buildings in Egypt, or for their tangible exhibited content and displays, or they were selected for their intangible heritage linked to the socio-economic, cultural, and political conditions of the Arab Renaissance area. And interestingly, most of these museums have survived years of neglect. It's either by the owners or by the state. Each one of them will have its own unique and individual story of neglect. But the BICAMI project aimed to offer a sound basis on which to build on. So we decided to work on advertising their existence, expanding their collections, perfecting their displays, and trying to place them on the touristic itinerary and making them more engaging and by large more visitor friendly. We also aim that each museum represents a comprehensive open air book that is more visible, accessible, and engaging. So we designed 4 physical itineraries as a co-production element, working with the youth as shown on the map. The itineraries are shown in blue, red, and green and yellow, which are accessible, practical due to the museum's location in Cairo within a walking distance from 3 underground stations, and they all have a maximum total walking journey of 3 kilometers. We run several capacity building workshops on public awareness, and we designed and implemented learning activities and inquiry skills that were used, centered, and they were more responsive, flexible, play-based, and extremely empowering for the young. We worked closely with school children and university students aged between 10 and 19 years old to engage them with the museums through the co-production of the physical itineraries, which I just referred to. So for the first time, we were linking them with these museums in closed loops and in closed clusters to be used and friendly managed. Some of the positive steps that and impact we have seen out of this project, there are many actually. So in February 2017, we launched a new initiative in Cairo titled Al-Murshid Al-Saghir, or in English, the Young Guide Program, that educates children about the value of Egypt's heritage and historical wealth. And it also, the program trains them to guide tours for museums visitors. The program was co-launched with the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities, and it's now running for a number of heritage sites for several years in Al-Gamaliya district in Cairo. We also trained a group of children who are now guiding some of the visitors, and the program is also trying to teach a number of other children, more children who are able to register on the programs through a Facebook page for carrying out guided tours in other foreign languages. We were also fortunate to receive recognition by ICOM Egypt for the Best Project Award in 2017. And part of the impact is that we have some of the museums that we have worked with have witnessed increase in the number of visitors across the past 2 years as well. The second project I will look at so quickly as well, just cautious of time, is the Recontextualizing Contested Heritage project, which also is a GCR project, and that project just concluded last month with our closing session with 3 partners in Iraq, Kosovo, and Lebanon. And we have Dr. Sabih Lafta, who was the Iraqi partner in Iraq as well, and he significantly contributed to this work in Iraq as well. In 2018, we developed this project combining historical inquiry with creating digital platforms to engage young people, as I just mentioned, from Lebanon, Kosovo, and Iraq, with their past and the built heritage following years of conflict and displacement in each region. The project heavily relied on the co-production process of online content that varied between 360 and drone imaging, creating short films, developing digital story maps, and more. And into this methodology, we do strongly acknowledge and appreciate the role of media in engaging the youth in connecting with their past and with their histories. As a creative, immediate tool to get their engagement up and running in many ways. Our ultimate goal in that project was to create a virtuous cycle whereby heritage is interrogated by building cultural bridges with the inclusion of youth as key actors, which in return strengthened and have been fostering great value in cultural heritage. So we plan to support this aim by 4 specific objectives for the project. The first one was building new collaborations. And as I just mentioned, we have done that by developing an interdisciplinary and international partnership to support collaborative programs with 3 different contexts, and trying to look at more comparative case studies that we can start to learn from and engage with. The second objective was raising awareness and promoting an understanding of participatory practices and how it can benefit the wider communities in the 3 regions. Also, we've been looking at building capacity and training by raising the profile of local expertise and early career researchers to develop practical skills and training that would benefit the wider cultural sector. The final objective was implementing tools and methodologies of co-production and the co-creation of sustainable framework and engagement programs to engage key stakeholders in cultural heritage production. So, learning through heritage and enhancing youth engagement, that was our main umbrella that we have been progressing through and working through. Hence, we engaged with youth people in the 3 countries affected by conflict and displacement to promote heritage and cultural exchange and socio-economic development. We focused on one of the global challenging problems, which is how to build sustainable peace and inclusive growth for communities struggling with the challenges of conflict. We have developed a research-led and interactive digital platform to build new cultural exchange venues that enable those young people and institutions to share and translate cultural responses to conflict and development challenges. We also developed a series of workshops and training to support strengthening the role of heritage institutions as promoters of human equality and social justice by opening new channels for the youth to echo their voices following years of challenge in fragile states. Our international participants and partners engaged in training, documentation, and co-production as a mean of plural participation of generating public memory to enable a growing number of young generation to revisit assumptions on the past and to share these experiences via social media platforms and public display. We also finally developed a culture and policy impact document, namely the Building Participatory Heritage Toolkit that provides a case study model to follow, which is developed in collaboration with the international partners, which is each one of them is unique to a specific context. So the methodology we implemented also enabled our young participants to go beyond collective memory, and they became more critical and analytical of the basis for identities they already hold. And as you can see on the slide here on the left-hand side, this is just some of the outputs that we have co-produced with the young people in the 3 regions. And actually, the digital outputs had really several positive aspects. First of all, they capture the youngsters' interest and imagination and allowed visualizing narratives of buildings and sites using new media tools. They also enabled moving into the virtual representation of heritage sites to seek sources of evidence that allowed them to make conclusions on the basis of evidence. The youth also learned from non-symbolic first group experience and were encouraged and required to collaborate and provide a social atmosphere. And finally, they engaged with the concept of hybridity and the complexity of the history of their nations. So each case study had a specific content knowledge focus that communicated the diverse historical influences on the modern society they live in. And the focus was not only on simple reading of factual information about the history and the culture, but to look around and move from place to another and to question preconceptions and the contrast of their own understanding and opinions from the evidence of different influences. Here are some of the illustrations we produced during the work progress and the closing session we had on the 29th of July last month that captures the main essences and ideas and spirits of the activities we have conducted. And all this information and all this, the displays and the videos, the films, the drone imaging and the 360 imaging, all this is available on our website now. It's still under development, but you can access the website via the link that you have over here. You will be able to view the youth fascinating co-production outputs, as I said, short films, storyboards. They are linked to the 3 regions that they worked with and drone imaging as well. We also have a Facebook page that we keep updating and uploading with new information, with new visiting ideas, with new information that you can also navigate at any time. So I would really appreciate if you can go and have a look at the students' fascinating work, and just go and click on youth engagement work and just click on them, and you will see really fascinating work in Lebanon about Beit Beirut, the Schoolhouse Museum in Kosovo, and many interesting sites in Iraq as well. I think I will stop here, and thank you so much, and apologies if I've exceeded my time. Thank you so much.